Zurich, high strategist of the Zorth Dominion, reviewed the battle projections with a growing sense of disbelief. His 6 taloned fingers danced across the glowing interface, displaying numbers that should have been impossible. Loss ratios that defied military logic. How? He hissed, mandibles clicking in irritation. How does a species with no known genetic enhancements, no regenerative biology, no cybernetic augmentation, nothing, consistently defy our projections? The battle map flickered. On one side, the Zorth fleet, a technologically superior war machine spanning 1,000 systems. On the other, humans. A race so unremarkable, so average on the galactic scale, that they were originally classified as a minor curiosity by the Galactic Council. And yet they survived. They thrived. And they fought with a tenacity that shook the Dominion to its core. They adapt faster than predicted, General Scree said, shifting uneasily on his 4 insectoid legs. Their strategic responses are unpredictable. They ignore acceptable casualty ratios. And he hesitated. Zurich narrowed his compound eyes. And what? The general exhaled, his mandibles twitching. They laugh in the middle of battle, high strategist. Zurich froze. Explain, he ordered. Scree hesitated, then played a transmission intercepted from the latest engagement over Keltar Prime. It was a human comms channel, their battle chatter. Translated. Shit, we're outnumbered 10-1. Ha. Just means we won't run out of targets. Alright, let's make this hurt. Last one standing buys the drinks. Laughter. Casual. Fearless. The Zorth officers in the room exchanged nervous glances. Laughter. In the middle of a battle where they were being systematically outgunned, outmaneuvered, and slaughtered. No panic. No despair. Just humor. This is not logical, Zurich whispered. This is not the behavior of a species on the brink of annihilation. The silence was thick. Then the lights flickered. A communication alert flashed on the screen. An urgent transmission. Play it, Zurich ordered. The screen shifted to a live feed. A human stood there, helmet off, face bloody but grinning. His eyes gleamed with something terrifyingly alien to the Zorth psyche. So, you bastards think you've got us figured out? The human said, wiping blood from his face. Let me tell you something. He leaned forward, eyes locking onto the camera. The scariest part about humans? We think we're normal. The transmission cut. Silence. Zurich felt a chill crawl down his spine. He had a terrible, sinking realization. They weren't fighting warriors. They weren't fighting soldiers. They were fighting something else entirely. And they had severely underestimated it. This war wasn't going to be about technology. It wasn't going to be about numbers. It was going to be about who could break first. And the humans? They had no idea what that even meant. Zurich paced the war chamber, his claws clacking against the polished obsidian floor. The transmission from the humans still lingered in his mind, looping like a cursed echo. The scariest part about humans? We think we're normal. It was madness. Utter madness. No species should act like this. The Zorth Dominion had fought hundreds of wars across the stars. They had studied every known civilization, broken countless empires, crushed rebellions before they could even take root. Yet humanity was wrong in ways they could not quantify. They didn't break. They didn't surrender. They enjoyed the fight. A new alert flashed on the command terminal. A report from the front lines. Zurich's mandibles clicked as he opened the file. The contents were beyond belief. The humans had been outnumbered. Again. The Dominion had deployed 4 entire fleets to Sector 91. Enough firepower to reduce an entire planetary system to dust. By all accounts, the battle should have lasted mere hours. Instead, it had lasted 5 standard days. The humans lost half their forces. But before they were overwhelmed, they executed a counteroffensive so psychotic that even the Dominion's top war algorithms couldn't predict it. They boarded the Zorth flagship. Not with stealth. Not with precision. With rage. Helmet cam footage from the surviving Zorth soldiers displayed what could only be described as a nightmare in motion. Audio transcript, Zorth Marine helmet cam. Translation protocols active. They're breaching the outer hull. Impossible. The vacuum should kill them. Muffled explosions. Screams. They're in the corridors. There. Gunfire. The sound of armored boots running. A wet crunch. By the void. That one he's using his own arm as a weapon. More screaming. They're laughing. They're still laughing. Feed cuts to static. Zurich's claws dug into the console. His soldiers had been massacred. Not by advanced technology. Not by superior tactics. But by sheer, feral determination. There was something profoundly wrong with humans. No, not wrong. Different. The Zorth understood war. But humanity embodied it. They fought like cornered beasts, except they weren't cornered. They chose to fight this way. They wanted it. And the Dominion? They had no idea how to stop them. High strategist, a trembling officer spoke up. New intelligence suggests the humans are planning a full-scale retaliation. Our projections. Forget the projections, Xeric growled, his mandibles tightening. Tell me, what do they want? The officer hesitated. They don't want territory, he admitted. They don't even want resources. They just want to fight. A cold dread settled over Xeric's carapace. This was no longer a war for control. It was a war for something else entirely. Something the Zorth Dominion had never faced before. Something they weren't prepared for. And for the first time in his career, Xeric found himself asking a question he had never once considered. What if the Dominion couldn't win? Xeric stood in the war chamber, staring at the intelligence reports as if his compound eyes could force them to change. But the truth was undeniable. The Dominion was losing. Not because of inferior technology. Not because of weak strategy. But because the humans were simply something else entirely. They didn't fear war. They thrived in it. And now they were coming. Outer Rim Sector 19, Dominion Stronghold Vihuris Prime. The Dominion's last major defense outpost stood as a fortress of obsidian spires and planetary shields thick enough to withstand the impact of a dying star. It was here that the High Command had assembled their greatest minds. If the humans wanted a war, they would get one. Across the stronghold, fleet after fleet hovered in low orbit, weapons primed. Every available battleship was called in. The Dominion would not allow this infection to spread further. Then they arrived. At first there was only silence. No signals. No warnings. Then, like a shadow stretching over the stars, something massive tore through real space. It wasn't a fleet. It was one ship. A single, monstrous construct of human design, 30 kilometers long, covered in battle scars, its hull blackened by the remains of 1,000 wars. It should not have been possible. No ship of that size should have been able to move with such precision. Yet it advanced undeterred. Zorth engineers scrambled to understand how the humans had even built such a behemoth. The sheer amount of raw material needed should have crippled an empire. The energy signature alone was incomprehensible, oscillating between power levels that fluctuated as if the ship itself were alive. The war room filled with frantic chatter. That's not a ship, it's a walking apocalypse. Weapons, fire, fire. The Dominion opened fire. Thousands of cannons, energy beams, and torpedoes hurled toward the human dreadnought. It was an attack designed to destroy an entire fleet. The human ship did not move. The blast struck its hull, only for the kinetic impacts to disperse like raindrops against a mountain. Then the dreadnought responded. With a single shot. A beam of condensed energy ripped through the strongest of the Dominion's warships as if they were paper. The fortress shields, unbreakable for millennia, shattered like brittle glass. For the first time in recorded history, Vihuris Prime fell. Not to an armada. Not to an invasion. But to one ship. On the bridge of the human warship, Captain Elias Kane stood with his arms crossed. He turned to his second-in-command with a casual smirk. Think they got the message? His officer exhaled, staring at the devastation below. They're definitely paying attention now. Zorth Dominion High Command, escape shuttle. Xeric gripped the armrests of his seat, his entire frame trembling as the shuttle fled the ruins of Vihuris Prime. The scene replayed in his mind. One ship. One ship had done what no empire in history had ever achieved. It wasn't the technology. It wasn't even the strategy. It was the mentality. The humans believed they would win. Even when they were outnumbered, even when the odds were impossible, they never doubted it. And because they believed it, the Dominion had no choice but to believe it too. Xeric shuddered. The war was no longer about survival. It was about understanding. Understanding what humans truly were. Or worse, what they were becoming. Xeric had always believed in the Dominion's strength. For centuries they had ruled the stars with an iron grip. Their technology was unmatched. Their fleet was vast. Their soldiers were unbreakable. Yet here he was, fleeing like a coward, his claws gripping the armrests of an escape shuttle, his compound eyes staring in horror at what had once been Vihuris Prime. It was gone. Not just conquered. Not just occupied. Gone. A planetary graveyard, its surface still molten from the sheer force of the human dreadnought's weaponry. The defense fleets, the fortifications, the unbreakable shields, shattered like brittle shells. One ship, one human ship had done this. And Xeric knew this was only the beginning. Zorth Dominion Emergency War Council. The surviving High Command gathered in secrecy. Holograms flickered, displaying the broken fleets, the dying colonies, and the unstoppable advance of humanity. They had to act. Now. Deploy every remaining warship, Grand Strategist Tolvac growled. His carapace was still cracked from their desperate escape. We cannot let them reach Zorth itself. They will, Xeric muttered. The others turned to him. What do you mean? Xeric swallowed. They will reach Zorth. It's inevitable. We have thrown everything at them. The numbers, the technology, the tactics, we have outmatched them in every possible way. And yet they win. His voice trembled. Because humans don't fight wars like we do. They don't think like we do. The room fell silent. Xeric exhaled, trying to steady himself. We assumed they would break under the weight of our forces. That they would see logic and surrender. But they don't see war that way. For us, war is a necessary evil. A calculated risk. A means to an end. For humans. He looked around, his voice barely above a whisper. War is where they feel at home. The final battle, orbit over Zorth Prime. The Dominion threw everything into this last stand. A fleet of over 30,000 warships hovered in orbit, their weapons aimed at the void. Millions of soldiers stood ready, their armored bodies tensed with anticipation. The planetary shields, once considered overkill, now pulsed at full power, their energy strong enough to withstand an extinction-level event. And then they came. Not just the single dreadnought this time. Hundreds of human warships emerged from the darkness of space, their hulls scarred from battle, their weapons glowing with a terrible, relentless energy. But the humans did not open fire immediately. Instead, a signal came through. A voice. Come. Measured. And terrifying. This is Fleet Admiral Daniel Graves of the Terran Dominion. You have one chance to surrender. Refuse and we will end this war. Permanently. The Zorth commanders hesitated. Surrender? Impossible. They were the Dominion. They had ruled the stars for millennia. But Xeric knew the truth. They had already lost. One by one, Dominion ships began shutting down their weapons. Their shields flickered off. Captains refused orders. Soldiers dropped their rifles. The humans had won. Because deep down, every Dominion officer knew the truth. The scariest part about humans was not their weapons. It was not their technology. It was the simple, undeniable fact that they didn't think they were special. To them, this war was just another Tuesday. The Dominion surrendered. The war ended. And the galaxy would never be the same. Humans never thought they were extraordinary. But now the universe knows the truth. Want to hear more? Subscribe now.